if you have kids who are Marvel fans, or if you yourself are a Marvel fan, just like I am. Yeah. So this is the face of Doctor Strange of the Marvel comic series. But then this is also the face of Sherlock Holmes, of one of the best adapted versions of Sherlock Holmes, at least according to me. So one of you must mute yourself. I can hear a bit of background. Yeah, now it sounds good. Great. So Benedict Cumberbatch is an amazing actor. And this guy also went on to do yet another amazing project called The Imitation Game. So this movie is set in the World War times when the Nazis had an upper hand in the war, especially because they had this encryption machine called Enigma. Today, when you send messages to your friends, your colleagues, your family over WhatsApp, your messages are encrypted. But this technology was a privilege back in those years, reserved only for military communication. And the machine that made this possible in the World War scenario was Enigma. And this machine was developed and held by the Nazis. So it is at this juncture that this amazing English mathematician, genius, walks into the war scene, Alan Turing, and he and his team go on to break the code of Enigma, which kind of leads to the downfall of the Nazis and also brings the World War to an end. And the movie, The Imitation Game, is all about how this happens, how Turing achieves this, but also about some of the social injustices that he had to endure back in those days. So why exactly are we talking about war heroes, encryption missions, and so many other things when the title of the day is AI in academic writing and publishing? This is simply to drive home the fact that Alan Turing was not just a mathematical genius, but he is also considered as one of the founding fathers of artificial intelligence. And Alan Turing's time was 6 decades ago, well over 60 plus years, and the technology and the terminology of artificial intelligence has existed for 6 decades. Just that we were not talking about AI in every second social gathering, in every official context, because the concept of AI belonged to the nerds, it belonged in all these high glass towers, and definitely not among the common humans that we are. All of this changed around 2 years ago, thanks to the amazing phenomenon called ChatGPT. And when we talk about artificial intelligence, it is an umbrella term that encompasses so many different things. It is much more than robotics. It is much more than chatbots, NLMs, LLMs, you name it. There are just so many different facets to artificial intelligence. A day would not suffice to touch upon all of these facets. And today, AI has spread its firm roots into almost every single industry. Any process which is redundant, which has a set of rules, not much of a creative process involved, AI can do a much better job than experienced humans in the same field can do. And the field of law is no different to other fields. AI has definitely spread its wing across the legal departments in the way that legal processing happens, in the way that lawyers and clients interact. They make your life easier in several ways in searching for the right references, for instance, drafting your counter arguments, drafting your all the filing that you have to do. Anywhere you can find an application for AI and a cutting edge AI technology that is being developed for your requirement. But alongside all these nice things, there have also been sufficient instances where AI was not used in the right way, and then it put lawyers at a very tight spot all across the globe, right from the federal courts to the local courts. There have been instances where lawyers did not prudently use ChatGPT like tools. They ended up having very wrong references, or sometimes referring back to cases that did not exist in the first place, and all this never sat well with the judges. So these goof-ups are also part of the journey that we are. We cannot talk about AI without talking about ChatGPT, because it was in November 2022 that ChatGPT was unleashed on us, and ever since we have not stopped talking about it. And this was from a company called OpenAI. And interestingly, Elon Musk was one of the earliest investors in OpenAI. Musk definitely has an eye to catch these, the path breakers, the trailblazers of any field, I would say. And what is this ChatGPT? It is basically a chatbot. And we are not new to chatbots. chatbots. If you have ever ordered your food from an aggregator like Swiggy, Zomato, for instance, you know chatbots, because the moment that something goes wrong with your order, you go on and talk with the customer support option on these apps, which basically is an AI, a chatbot. You don't reach a human unless it is really necessary. But why are we also hooked upon and excited about this particular chatbot or this genera of chatbots is because unlike a Swiggy chatbot, which can only interact with you in very minimal ways, ChatGPT can hold hour-long conversations, human-like conversations, versatile conversations across any field, any topic, as long as this information is available on the internet. But that is the catch as well. It can only give you information that already exists. It cannot create something out of nothing, which is definitely one of the limitations. And because ChatGPT started out on the shoulders of giants like Google itself, it started out as a multilingual tool, which means not just the English-speaking community, the non-English speaking communities could also explore and appreciate what this tool has to offer. And that definitely added to the popularity of the tool. Until ChatGPT walked into the room, Google was doing a great job. We were using Google so extensively to find answers that we even created a verb called Googling to indicate us going onto the internet and finding answers to our queries. But when ChatGPT walked into the room, we all shifted our loyalties from Google to ChatGPT, because at the core, we're all slightly lazy beings. And ChatGPT is this pampering, spoiling parent that most of us have, who want to keep us happy, who want to just say yes to everything we ask for because they don't want to see us sad, they don't want us throwing tantrums. That's exactly what ChatGPT does as well. So when you keep pushing ChatGPT with questions, say you ask a question and then ChatGPT says, sorry, I do not know the answer to this because I cannot find the relevant information. You don't want to give up. You want to keep pushing, ask more questions, reframe your questions. At one point, ChatGPT gives up and it starts giving you information. It starts extrapolating from what it knows to extend into arenas that it has no clue about and give you answers that sound true, but in reality are not true and don't come from the right sources and are not backed up by the right citations and references. This is known as hallucinations, and hallucinations is definitely one of the top concerns as to why you have to be very careful about using a blog post, because we don't want to end up having to retract our blog post with all the public shaming. None of us love that, so we don't want to do that. And when it comes to this AI revolution, ChatGPT is the face of the revolution. And of course, the numbers also show us that ChatGPT is one of the most popular, most visited, most visible tools out there. But AI is not all about ChatGPT. There are millions of other different tools. But even when you look at the just top 50 tools within a span of a year between September 2022 and August 2023, you see that just for these 50 tools, there have been around 24 billion visits. This shows how popular and how rampant AI has become in today's world. And if you want to master ChatGPT or any of these Gen AI tools, then you have to master something called prompt engineering. Prompts are basically the instructions that you provide these tools, the questions that you ask these tools before they can come up with the right answers. And when you Google for a prompting framework, you will just have hundreds of different suggestions out there, so many different examples, so many different structures. But no matter how fancy prompts you use, always remember that it has to kind of adhere to at least this basic structure. You cannot just jump into ChatGPT and start asking your questions without providing any context. You cannot just jump in and ask ChatGPT to, okay, so go start pulling out examples for such and such a case, or pulling out back references for such and such a case. So how should I approach it? So what is the context in which you're asking this question? Always set the context. Give ChatGPT very specific tasks, define it very clearly, and then provide exact step-by-step instructions as to what ChatGPT has to do. What is the source from which the information has to be picked? What kind of information has to be picked on? How should this information be processed and brought back to you? Are you looking for excerpts? Are you looking for paraphrased information? And also, as and when necessary, make sure that you add additional clarifications to your prompting so that you and ChatGPT or any other AI tool are on the same page in trying to find the answer to your questions. So when we dig slightly more deeper than the chatbot narrative, what are these general purpose Gen AI tools? They are basically AI that learn from existing information, process the information, and bring it back to you in certain ways depending on what you want. So just this process in itself is flawed because ChatGPT or AI can only bring in information that already exists. They are not creative in the true sense. They don't create something out of nothing, which means when you're trying to do your research, be it in your legal fields or otherwise, we normally look for different perspectives. We look for novel perspectives. We look for these research questions that do not exist, right? So you want to be the first person on the moon to be remembered. It's the same case with research. So if your research has to get the recognition that you think it deserves, then you should come up with these novel questions that do not exist or have not existed before you walked in, which means AI is not always the right choice for you to pick these questions from simply because they are not creative and they cannot come up with something out of thin air. And we humans are highly biased creatures. And where is this AI getting all its information from? It is learning from human generated data in the form of text, in the form of videos, audios, audiovisual content, you name it. Everything that these tools are learning from have come from humans. And we humans are super judgmental and super biased. Anytime a person walks into the room, even before they can open their mouth, even before they can say something, we have a judgment on them. We add labels to these people we have even never met before in our lives. This bias could be something as simple as a gender bias, could be based on their belief systems, based on their faith, based on the region they come from, the language they speak, the country they belong to, their political affiliations, you name it, we just have a myriad of biases, and all the information that we have generated over the past decades, they are tinted with these biases. We have tainted them with our biases consciously or subconsciously. And when an AI looks at this information, as a human, when I look at this information, say for instance, I look at 5 different advertisements for 5 different hospitals. What do I see? Just imagine that there are 5 posters which are advertisements for 5 different hospitals in our city. I'm sure most of these posters are going to have a bit of blue paint, a bit of green paint, at least somewhere on it. There's going to be a lot of white in the form of lab coats, in the form of doctor coats, and also in the form of what you see. And most probably, majority of the doctors could be male, majority of the nurses or nurse representations could be female, and someone is going to be wearing a stethoscope, and at least one of them is going to have a spectacle. And the most possible pose that you see these people, these doctors, nurses posing is something like this, right? So when I look at 5 advertisements, any random 5 hospital posters, I'm sure most of these features you can find on them. Now, as a human, I know that this is not all true because I have been to real hospitals and I know what chaotic place they can be, how unorganized they could be. Yes, we also have these nice, pristine, high-end hospitals, but then you also have this completely downright chaotic hospitals which do not follow any of the schema that I see on these 5 different advertisements. But as a human, I can see the difference. I can notice the difference. But when an AI looks at these 5 posters, all it sees is, okay, so these are some of the elements that keep repeating over the 5 posters, which means these are the basic rules or basic tenets that have to be preserved when I develop my poster that my user wants me to prepare. So this is how biases get propagated when you use AI, and this is one other reason why you should be very careful when you use content generated by AI. And a good example and point is this set of images. So these images were created by an AI Midjourney, I believe, where all you have to do is just describe an image you have in your head using a few words, and the AI can convert this textual prompt into a composite image. And when this happened for the first time a year or so back, we were all super amazed. We were just floored by what AI can do. Even now, this is amazing when you look at it for the first time. But take a pause, take a breath, and then look at them one more time. What do you see? Let's assume we're all sitting somewhere in the US. Even then, do you think all prisoners look like that? Or to rephrase my question, are all prisoners black, or majority of the prisoners black in the US? And when you look at the lawyer, how many of you look like that? Or do you think lawyers have to look a certain way? How many of you would be treated by a nurse who looks like that? The more important question is, why should a nurse look something completely different from what a cleaner looks like? It's a very clear, biased, polarized images on the two ends of the spectrum. The user did not introduce this bias. Where did the tool learn this from? The tool has learned these features, learned these biases from all the existing advertisements, the movie clips, all the data that we have generated over the past decades. And this is why you should be very careful when you use AI, because AI tends to pick the popular tenets, amplify it, and bring it back to you. Whereas all those feeble voices, the marginalized voices, opinions, the new opinions, all the new breakthroughs which have not had sufficient footfall yet, do not get represented appropriately in AI generated content. And this calls for a lot of caution in the way that you use AI to generate your arguments, to generate your manuscripts, to generate pretty much anything and everything you want to do in your professional as well as in your personal lives, I would say. So before we jump on today's journey of trying to figure out a handful of AI tools that can help you make your academic writing and publishing journey easier, it is important to acknowledge and understand that AI is complex. It is multi-layered, and the entire landscape is evolving every single day, and we humans do not understand all parts of this evolution. This calls for a lot of caution alongside the super excitement that we already have for this AI world. On that note, I'm Dr. SOWMIYA, and I enjoy doing three things in my life at the moment, at least. The first is that of being a parent to my 10-year-old little girl and all the stray pets, birds, the fishes, snails, frogs, tadpoles, everything she brings along. The second role is that of an editor with a company called Editage, where I edit manuscripts, edit grant applications, edit pretty much any kind of written content day in and day out. I have been associated with Editage for 3+ years now. And that is where the number of 1,500 plus manuscripts come in. So now I guess the count is well over 1,700, 1,800 manuscripts that I have worked on in the past 3 years that were documented. The third role that I done pretty recently is that of an entrepreneur, where I have a startup called SOWMIYA, almost 3 years old. And this startup was incubated at NSR Cell, a wing of IIM Bangalore. And what we do here is we focus on training faculty, researchers, academicians, industrialists, anyone who's interested in doing research and trying to publish their research in formal channels. Also, sometimes informal communications in the form of books, in the form of book chapters. We pretty much work around all of that. How do we do that? What do we support? We basically have these small programs, just like the one we have, small webinars in association with institutions. And then we have long form workshops, which run for anywhere between 1 day, 5 days, 10-day workshops, where we intensively coach academics and non-academics on all the different tenets of academic writing and publishing. And then we augment these sessions through our editing services. So we support our clients even beyond the session, not just our clients. We support pretty much anyone who comes to us by taking care of everything except the writing part. The draft comes from the client, and from there we format the manuscripts as required. We proofread it, enhance the language, make the structures better, make the reading experience better for the readers. We also help them navigate the peer review process and whatnot. So we pretty much handhold you through everything other than the actual writing part. You're the researcher, you're the academic here, so the draft still comes from you, but everything else can be taken care of. When you look at the life of an academic, a researcher, or a faculty come researcher, a majority of their time is spent around reading content and then processing this content, preparing it into multiple ways in the form of presentations, in the form of manuscripts, in the form of blog posts, and then presenting it somewhere. So what if we can give you tools that make this part of your life easier and less time consuming so that you have more time to do the other things in your professional life and also to take care of your personal commitments, your hobbies, and what. So this thought will form the underlying current for the rest of the presentation, where I'll introduce you to the appropriate tools. One of the first places where you can use AI is in finding the right literature and reviewing this literature. And when I say literature, the meaning, it differs depending on who I am talking to, right? So if I'm talking to a hardcore medico, a hardcore a scientist, then literature means more formal papers from journals, review articles, properly submitted thesis, and so on. But then when I'm talking to researchers from the social sciences background, from legal backgrounds, from management studies, literature does not necessarily mean only the formal communication. It could also be other white papers. It could be simple blog posts, news articles, other loosely documented information could also mean literature. So no matter which literature you're talking about, what encompasses the literature, when you start your research work, you're expected to know pretty much everything that has been published in your field before you can propose your own research questions and how you aim to tackle them. And especially when you're looking for very formal sources of literature, a simple shift from doing your search on Google, even from Google Scholar, to something called Semantic Scholar can save you a lot of time. So how is Google Scholar, and Semantic Scholar different? Google is your general purpose search engine. Google Scholar is Google's version of a scholarly search engine where the focus is only on academic articles, on journal articles, on really relevant academic stuff. But the difference between Google Scholar and Semantic Scholar is that Google Scholar is focused on keyword-based search, wherein it tries to find, so if you give keyword 1, keyword 2, keyword 3, and so on, so the tool focuses on keyword 1, looks for all the papers with keyword 1. Then with keyword 2, with keyword 3, even when you use all these Boolean operators, there is only very limited filtering. But instead, when you do the same search, when you want academic content, when you are focused on finding formal literature, doing it on Semantic Scholar, which focuses on semantics, where the search looks at more than the keywords. It looks at interactions of keywords, the repetitions, and so on. You end up with lesser number of papers, more relevant papers, saving your time. When I say literature, the first image that you have in your head is, okay, so say I'm writing a paper and I have referred back to 50 different papers to do my literature synthesis. And the first image you have in your head is, okay, I'm sitting at my laptop. There is this nice yellow folder that says literature. And within this yellow folder, there are, say, around 7, 8 different subfolders. And within this folders, there are n number of papers. And all of this put together, there are 50 papers. I'm going to refer one paper, write about that paper. Paper 2, write about it. Paper 3, write about it. This is not how literature evolved. This is not how you should look at literature, and definitely not how you should present the information in literature. So literature is basically one unified story. This story started at one paper when one set of researchers found something novel, reported something novel, or came up with a new theory, came up with a new suggestions and whatnot. And from there, this story has constantly been evolving with the work of multiple researchers. And as with any story, this story also has a lot of these small sub-branched stories. And when you are trying to present literature, you're basically trying to present this interconnected long story in your perspective, in a perspective that makes sense as to why you end up with a particular research question. And a simplest way to trace this storyline is to look at what is known as the references and citations within journal articles or on thesis. So So just by following the citation and references through this process called citation mining, where you just look at references, search for the appropriate papers, read those papers, and then start hunting the references in those papers and so on, you can pretty much come up with the first layer of literature that you're trying to find and use in your own work. And this process, when you think about it, it is simple. It's straightforward. No creativity whatsoever required. There is a set of rules and it's also repetitive and redundant. Anytime you see such a process, AI is better than you. And that is why you should be using tools like LitMaps. And one quick difference between LitMaps, Semantic Scholar, and Google Scholar is that Semantic Scholar and Google Scholar, they have a top-down approach, which means they first start with tens of thousands of articles, at least a few thousands of articles, and then you will have to manually filter out what fits your narrative, what does not fit your narrative, and then bring it down to 100 articles. LitMap, like literature mapping AI tools, they take the bottom-up approach, which means you start with one or a handful of articles of your choice and then consciously build on this collection with only papers that are relevant to your initial choice of articles. This means you don't have to go through thousands of articles. You're going to hardly lean into 200 to 250 articles to arrive at those top 100 articles that are most relevant to you. How do you work with LitMaps? Similar to what you do with Google. Just give a few keywords to LitMaps, and LitMaps is going to give you a handful of papers. You can pick one paper, and when you pick one paper, this is called a seed map. In this case, I just picked one paper called Lange 2023, and based on this one paper, LitMaps has built an entire collection of 20 different papers. And anytime I want to know what each of these papers mean, I have to just click on the circle or click on this indication here, and I get to read the title and abstract of the paper from within the LitMaps interface. I can also save these papers here. I can add tags, organize my papers here. All this is going to make my process of literature collection pretty easier. This is just the first step. In the second step, instead of starting with just one paper, maybe I'll use all these 20 papers to find 10 other papers. And in my next search, I'll figure out which among these 30 papers are most relevant to me and use, say, 17 papers, create one other collection. And by doing this over and over, I can find my entire literature collection in a day or two if I really know what I'm looking at. Say, I can have 100, 150 papers that are most relevant to me in a day or two pretty easily without having to spend my time on tens of thousands of papers. So when you ask a question to ChatGPT, there are a few issues. The first, these tools the general purpose Gen AI tools, they can hallucinate, give you false information, false sources, and forget to cite the right sources. Then they are highly biased. We don't want biased information. And then again, the tools do not represent all the information out there, and they don't really understand the relevance between academic content and non-academic content. For this purpose, when you're working on academic papers, ask your questions to academic AI tools like Consensus. Similar to ChatGPT, Consensus is going to give you a summary answer. But then when you look at the detailed summary in this feature called Copilot on Consensus, every single sentence has a citation. You just have to hover your mouse over the citations to see where this information is coming from. The entire details of the paper pops up. And just below the summary, you also have all the 10 papers that were analyzed. The top 10 papers that were analyzed to give you the summary just listed below, which means you get to explore those papers further. And this summary is formal. It is not copied per se, because AI tools, they were not built to plagiarize. They were not built to copy information. They were built to process information and bring it back to you. However, remember that these AI tools are basically probability models. So when I say I am, possibly the next word is Dr. SOWMIYA, or I am hungry, I am sleepy. There is just very few combinations of words, few probabilities after every 2 words, after every 3 words in a particular context. This is why setting the context becomes important. The AI tools, they are clever enough, intelligent enough, they are trained enough to take an intelligent guess as to what the next word could be in any context, and that's how they build the content. They don't understand your question, they don't understand the answers they are giving you. They are just picking words, picking content, and building them one after the other based on a probability model. This is what happens with majority of the AI tools, which means this content, this summary that you get here is not plagiarized. It was written, rewritten by AI. You can very well copy paste this content into your draft manuscripts. But the bottom line is only on your first drafts and your earlier drafts, not on your final manuscript, because just like how you cannot just copy paste content from different sources, that becomes plagiarism. Similarly, this content, though it is not per se plagiarized, this is still AI generated, and several institutions and journals, publishers don't accept AI generated content, at least as of now. Therefore, you cannot use this content on your final manuscripts. So once you have got answers to your questions, got summaries to your questions, sometimes you might want to have certain data extracted from multiple PDFs. Say, for instance, I want to understand the research question across multiple papers. I want to understand the limitations, the research gap across multiple papers. Or I want to compare the methodology, the population that was used to make this study across papers. Then I can use tools like Elicit, which will help me extract very specific information from hundreds of papers in a tabulated form. I can just add a column called population, add one other column called methodology, one other column for statistical analysis, and all this information that I'm looking for from multiple papers will get tabulated. Reading scientific papers is not always an interesting job. This comes from someone who reads papers day in and day out. Doing that is my bread and butter, right? But even then, understanding scientific papers can get boring, can get daunting, because scientific papers are not book chapters. They don't start from A. They jump directly into the middle of the story. They maybe present a few parts of the earlier story, but not the complete story. Also, the language in scientific manuscripts could also get a bit daunting. That is where you can try using tools like SciSpace, Copilot. So SciSpace has a lot many features, but I'm talking specifically about this Copilot feature where you can upload a manuscript, and anytime you want more explanation, additional information for a certain section of the paper, just drag your mouse over the section, highlight it, and then you can get a summary. You can ask for explanation. You can even ask for related papers, or do you have any other specific questions? You have a chat bot, you have a chat box, which basically helps you interact with this paper in the ways that you want. Reading as a habit has definitely lost its shape. We are a generation more interested in audiovisual content. We start and end our days with Instagram reels. We don't even bother reading the caption below the reels. We are just focused on the nice stimulation that we get out of the audiovisual content. And even when it comes to other forms of reading, we no longer navigate towards blog posts. We are more interested in podcasts, right? So the entire world is shifting in terms of how we consume information. But then why haven't we changed ways in which we consume academic content? Why are we still so bent upon having hard copies of manuscripts, papers, or reading them on your desktops, laptops, just as a visual content, right? So this is majorly because papers are not published as audiobooks. They don't come out as audio content. They don't come out as audiovisual content. So we are forced to stick to our reading processes. What if AI can change this? What if AI can convert any of your content into an audio content that you can listen as you commute to your work, as you're hitting the gym, as you're cooking your next meal, or just busy doing other things as you're prepping for an argument, for a court appearance, and whatnot. So these tools, they help you basically listen to any content. You can try tools like Speechify, listening.io. Listening.io specific for manuscripts, but Speechify is a more general purpose listening tool. You just have to upload your documents. You can even link your emails to them, which means you get to do a major part of your job during the commute to your office. You can do this during the long waiting periods that you have during your court appearances and what. And once we are done listening, understanding literature in the context of writing your own manuscripts, the next step is to convert these information into notes. And here again, you can use tools like Scholarly, where you can upload documents that you're interested in converting into notes, interested in having on your own manuscripts, convert them into what are known as flashcard summaries, and you can export them as a MS Word document, as a PDF document, or even as a PowerPoint document, which means you can quickly convert any written content into a set of PowerPoint slides, which will form the skeleton of your presentation. You can, of course, go ahead and make revisions, customize it as and when you require. So writing content is not just about refurbishing what already exists. You should also add your perspectives, your thoughts. Here again, not all of us always have the time to sit down and write beautiful notes on our notebooks, on our legal pads and whatnot. And we don't always have the time to sit and type out information as well. What if you can carry around a personal assistant where you can just dictate all the information that you want, and this personal assistant takes this information, converts it into text, also organizes it appropriately, does a bit of proofreading if you know which tools to connect to these assistants, then your job becomes much easier. And the assistants that you're looking for are tools like speech notes and audio pen, which are very efficient in capturing live audio. But then some of these tools are also good with transcribing existing videos into audio content, properly organized, headed, subheaded, and ready for you to use it elsewhere. So once you're done with the writing content, then comes a requirement where you have to create images, especially images where you have a thought in your head, and these have to be represented appropriately in a visual form. And Midjourney was definitely one of the AI tools that was popular, but Midjourney is not free. You have so many other alternatives where all you have to do is just describe the image in your head using a few words, 15, 20 words, and then this gets converted into a good image. And in all the commotion around these new fancy AI tools, some of us fail to notice that a tool that has been around for 10 years has been a great savior in making presentations and making flyers, posters, also has a great AI component to it. And that tool is none other than Canva. And the AI component is called Magic Studio. So now on Canva, you can pick a free template. You can use the AI prompts to generate content that go onto your slides, go onto your posters. You can also generate images. You can generate small animations, small GIFs, all using Magic Studio. And your draft document is ready in no time, saving you a lot of time and effort around this. What if you have to create flow diagrams? You have to create these, say, any kind of, say, SWOT analysis, say, business plans, or any kind of diagrams where there is a flow. So where you have these large chunks of blocks and some sort of flow diagrams, mind maps, for instance, then you can use this tool called eDrawMaps as an AI tool, where you can describe the flowchart you have in your mind, and this tool can convert your idea into a properly made flowchart, mind map, and so on. Academic writing is all about avoiding plagiarism, and that can be done by appropriate citations and references. And managing the citation and referencing is not an easy task, especially when you're new to academic writing. But this process does not exactly need an AI, because we have a lot many conventional tools like EndNote, Zotero, Mendeley, which have been doing a great job in managing your references. But if you don't use any of these tools and you have ended up with n number of references that have to be taken care of, citations that have to be taken care of, then you can check out this AI tool called Tricks, where you can upload your manuscript with the citations and references. The tool takes care of all of that, but you can also use it in a much simpler process where you can just copy paste references into the tool and convert it into your desired format. Language is a huge bottleneck. It's definitely an Achilles heel, especially for those who are new to English or who learned English pretty later in their life. But this does not get easier even for people who are good writers in the non-academic, in the informal sense. You might be a great blog writer, but then your manuscripts could still be really bad because the target audience is different, the formats are different, the language is also way different. That is where you can quickly use tools like Pillbot to perfect your academic language. Pillbot is just the most popular AI tool when it comes to language issues, but you can also check out other alternatives like Paperpal, Trinka, then you have WordTune, you have Writeful. So these are some of the great alternatives, great academic alternatives to take care of your grammar language. Yes, Grammarly is a great choice, but Grammarly was not built for academic content. So these tools, they were trained on academic manuscripts by academic editors because Paperpal is from the company that I work for as an editor, and Paperpal did have access to a lot many editors' work to perfect its job. Similarly, Trinka is from yet another language editing company called Enago, which means from scratch they had the right resources to build these tools. And we do have these magic AI that can pretty much write your entire papers. And one of the most popular tools is Jenny. Paperpal can also do it. You have Zomo AI, SciSpace is coming up with the AI writer feature. So several tools are coming up that can do this. But the catch is you cannot use the content that comes out of any of these tools as they are because they will be red flagged as AI generated content. Use these tools to generate outlines, generate skeletons, use the content as an inspiration to write your own manuscripts. Even better, use them as your sounding boards where you play around with different ideas, different perspectives, and then pick what makes sense to you as an individual, as a researcher, and then bring it back onto your own manuscripts. And once you're done writing the manuscripts, they have to be checked for like 1,000 different aspects. AI can do that for you now, where you have this tool called Manuscript Check from Paperpal, which will check your draft manuscript for close to 40 different aspects, right from the accuracy of the metadata to your language issues, because Paperpal is basically a language tool. So anything and everything around all the requirements for a journal submission is checked. You get a report, and then based on the report, you can make changes to give your manuscript a better chance at being moved into the peer review process. Once you're done writing manuscripts, then comes a process where you have to present the idea at different platforms. PowerPoint has been a great support all these years, but if you want to slightly pep up your presentations, you should look at using Canva if you have not used it already, or you should look at tools like Prezi, which can give you a lot of interactive slide options, or you can also look at completely AI tools like Dectopus, Pop AI, Gamma AI, where you can upload documents, convert them into presentations. You can use a very simple prompt, and this prompt will be used to develop an entire deck with content and images and whatnot. And I'm sure some of you here on the audience today are faculty, are researchers as well. And teaching is no longer just teaching. You're also expected to bring in the money, come up with the right research plans, and then get them published. So even in the process of grant writing, you have so many AI tools that can help you with formulating your research ideas, developing a proposal based on the idea, preparing the Gantt charts, preparing your activities, preparing your budgets even. So you have a lot of tools like Grantable, you have Grant Boost, then you have HyperWrite, then you have Fundwriter.ai. You just have to play around with these tools for a bit before you figure out which of them actually fit best for your specific requirement. And the session would not be complete without offering tools that can also help you with the teaching part of being a faculty. And there you have tools like EduAid, you have Education Copilot, you have GradeScope, and between these tools, they help you pretty much with everything from creating your lesson plans and then creating content that goes into each of the lectures, creating presentations if necessary, creating interactive content. You can even create assessments, not just MCQs, proper subjective assessments that can be graded with minimal inputs from you, and then these grades are scored appropriately, they are saved, and then you even get to track the progress of a student over several weeks, over semesters, however you deem is necessary with the use of these tools. No matter how good you are with your subject, no matter how great of a researcher you are, at the end of the day, it all boils down to how good you can communicate your thoughts to the audience. This could be to an expert committee, this could be to your students, this could be to a general audience. And here again, AI can come to your rescue. AI like Voiced. So these tools, they basically sit with you on a video call where you present to these tools. They look at the way you do it. They look at your body language. They look at the language you use. Are you using too many pauses? Or are you having very little pauses and running at a breakneck speed? Are you repeating a word too many times? That doesn't sound really well. How's your posture? So depending on which tool you pick, they pretty much give you a very good critique in a very safe environment, and they are available to you 24/7. So you can complete making your slides at 2 a.m. in the morning and then do a quick run with one of these tools to iron out all the hiccups, and you're ready, fresh in the morning to go and actually give the presentation at 9 and 1. Now that we have quickly had an overview of different AI tools that can help you in academic writing, the right question to be asking is it ethical to use any of these tools on my next academic writing process, or in my grant writing process, or in my teaching process? The answer is complicated. The answer could be yes, but it is also no. Yes, when you're trying to use these tools as your assistants to help you make the job better, to help you with redundant tasks, not with creative tasks, not with critical decision-making tasks, then you're in a good place. But if you're trying to use these tools to replace parts of your skill set, the essential, the core skill set, then you're doing it all wrong. What do institutions and publishers have to say about the use of AI? Institutions are just starting out in creating these committees, which will eventually lead to reports and decision making on how far AI can be used, both in the faculty spheres as well as in the student spheres. So we still have to wait for the general consensus among institutions, but publishers have already reached a consensus for several aspects. And one of the things is that AI cannot be a co-author or a co-writer. Yeah. Because when ChatGPT was introduced for the first time, some researchers thought it was a great idea to use ChatGPT to generate large parts of their manuscript and then add ChatGPT as one of the co-authors. This did not sit well with the publishers. So you cannot use ChatGPT in the scope of a co-writer or a co-author, and never ever add an AI tool as a co-author on any of your papers. Anytime you use an AI for something more than proofreading, language corrections, restructuring, always declare its use. Journals are okay with you using AI for proofreading and taking care of your structure, taking care of your flow, consistency, and cohesiveness, because we editors have been doing that for authors for several decades now. We work with journalists, we work with authors, we make this process, this transition from thought to publication smoother, easier. So if you try to replace us with AI, publishers are okay with it. But if you try to replace the researcher, the critical thinker, the writer in you, then these publishing houses are not okay with it. So make sure that anytime you use AI, more than for just simple language issues, go ahead, find the appropriate AI declaration statement from the journal and declare the use of AI. So when we were still reeling under all the idiosyncrasies of plagiarism detectors, we are now faced with the AI content detectors. And these are just toddlers on the block. They are not perfect, but just like how AI is here to stay, content detectors are also here to stay. They are not flawless, but then Turnitin also has an AI content detector. Journals are increasingly using content detectors, which means when you're ready with your manuscript, don't just pass your manuscript through a lab check, but also do an AI content check. And if necessary, if you find that the AI content is above 10-15%, then make sure that you rewrite these sections to not land in any trouble later on. So I did a small experiment with these content detectors to see how they work. So I picked a content detector called copy leaks. And then I generated a small paragraph using an AI tool called Chen. So now this AI generated content was placed into copy leaks, the detector, and it was good enough. It told me that 100% of the content was generated by AI. Great. But anytime you start a policing department in any sense, there will always be a group of people who want to challenge this status quo and basically break the rules or see how far this can be pushed. That's exactly what humanizers do. So humanizers are basically AI that take content written by one AI, rephrase it in such a way that it sounds human. It follows all the tenets of human written text as understood by these content detectors to help this content bypass these content detectors. So do humanizers really work? I checked that as well for you. And I picked a humanizer called Stealth Writer. So first I wrote this paragraph using Cheney, placed it into Stealth Writer. Stealth Writer gave me 5 different options, also some other options in which I can humanize this text. And after humanizing the text, I take it back to this detector called CopyLeaks. And now this detector thinks 100% of this text was written by a human. I promise you, I did not add a single punctuation or a word to any of this content. It was generated by an AI, rewritten by an AI, but the detector AI could not detect this to be written by an AI. So these detectors are not flawless, but this is in no way an invitation to any of you to use humanizers to bypass detectors, because though technically this is not detected as AI generated content, when an actual editor or a reviewer, or if you're a student, when your faculty reads through this, they will know that the difference, right? So there are very, very minute flags, minute nuances that people experienced with writing content can figure out at least majorly which comes from a human and which comes from an AI. So this could be a fun exercise, but if you think this is your way out of actual writing and doing the hard stuff, then you're missing out the entire point of using AI. Use AI to outsource redundant, boring, small jobs so that you can actually focus on improving yourself as an academic and as a writer. The world is split on this question of AI. Is AI good? Is it bad? Should we encourage AI? Should we stop it in its tracks? The world is almost split at the middle, if I can say so. And Elon is on the side of naysayers. He is a very vocal opponent of AI. He hates AI on one side, and then he goes on and starts a company called Neuralink. And this company has already embedded its first chip into a human brain. So this chip basically makes this human a kind of humanoid, because there is human, there is also the machine component. And these humans, at least one human has already been engineered, so can now control all devices connected to him without having to touch the device or without having to utter even a single command. And this could be the next step of evolution. Maybe we'll all live to see the day when humanoids rule the world, humanoids take over the Homo sapiens, Homo sapiens version of humans that we know as of now. So I would like to end the session by stating that AI is not the villain here. How you use AI, the policies you devise against the use of AI or for the use of AI is going to determine the future. And we being at the place of decision makers, hope we take the right decisions for the future generations to come as well. And if you enjoyed today's session and you would like to explore these tools even further, then we have a 5-day online workshop coming up just this Monday. The registration is officially closed, but if you would like to be a part of it, you can just write to me, and then we'll see how to get you back on the program. So this will be an exclusive hands-on session where we'll explore several of the tools that we talked about today in depth. In addition, we'll also have a lot many other alternative tools as well. And this is where you can reach out to me if you're interested in the workshop, but then also otherwise. This QR code leads you to my LinkedIn page, and I write almost 3 days a week on the different aspects of academic writing and publishing. I also curate AI tools for different parts of this entire process. Normally, I tend to pick up all these new tools. I prefer tools that have something to offer for free so that you can check them out for a few times before you decide if you want to go for the pro version. I'm not good with calls because most of the times I'm on a session talking to someone on a meeting or so, but then I'm great with WhatsApp. So you can always drop a message on WhatsApp to the number, and then I will get back to you before the end of the day. If at any point in future you're looking for manuscript editing services or for editing your book, sometimes even in some cases we also co-write books for informal content, then you can drop a message on the email ID you see on the screen, and someone from the team will get back to you. And this QR code is all the more important. This QR code is going to take you to a feedback form where I would like to hear from you about your thoughts on this session. This feedback form is also your entry point to receive a PDF version of all the tools and even more tools that I discussed in today's session. So you promised to submit the feedback form. I promise to share the PDF list of various tools you can use in manuscript writing and publishing so that you don't have to go back to your handwritten notes. You'll always have a ready-made PDF that you can get back to anytime you want to explore AI tools for your academic writing and publishing purposes. And on that note, thank you for indulging me for the past 1 hour. And I'm also going to share the
different aspects have certainly provided us with a fresh perspective and valuable takeaway. Now, moving on to the question answer sessions. Participants are requested that you can put forward your questions now. You can simply write it down in the chat box, or you can unmute yourself to put forward the question.
So I have also shared a link to the feedback form on the chat box. So if you did not catch the QR code, you can just follow the link to submit your feedback form and get the PDF list of tools. So I see that there's already a question on the chat box from Dr. Devashri. So all these tools are usually freemium tools, which means they have some of the features that you can try out for free. Some of them offer all the features for a very limited period of time. Each of them, they have their own strategy on how they have to offer these features. Most of the tools, you can check them out once or twice for free, or check out the minimal features for free. But then if you want to use the full repertoire of what they offer, then you have to go for the paid version.
Hello, madam.
Hello, sir.
Madam, if I got a result, my own result, say I got a result from my Google survey. Okay. So if I ask the AI to write a report on this or generate a report, so it's not something like plagiarism, right? It's my own result, and it's going to analyze my result.
Yes. So when it analyzes your results, it is not plagiarism, but the words that the tool uses for the analysis, because no matter whose results they are, when you talk about analysis, there are very standard sentences. There are very standard words that are used to express certain opinions, and these words, they could be picked up from other sources. And when an AI does that, these certain sections could show up as plagiarism. So my advice is, yes, you can use AI to do the analysis, but after you do it, after you write your papers, please put your manuscripts through a plagiarism checking tool, preferably an institutional tool like Turnitin, not on these free online available tools. Do the plag check using a proper Turnitin or Authenticate, and then sort the issues if there are any before you do a submission to the journal. That is my suggestion.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, so I'll just share the link, Dr. Suvik. So I hope the others are able to see the link in the chat box.
Greetings of the day, ma'am. This side, Dr. Nidhi Arora. Actually, I don't have any question, but actually, due to network issues, I missed a point that you have, as you said, that AI tool should not be used for the co-authors, right?
Sorry, AI should not be used for?
Used for co-authors.
Yeah, right. So
actually, there
AI,
was network issue. I could not get that point. Could you explain it once?
Yeah. So what I was trying to mention in that slide is, Dr. Nidhi, you cannot use AI to generate large amounts of information on your paper. So just like how we discussed with Dr. Sunil, you can do the basic analysis. You can take the content, but then the input has to come from you. You have to validate that the information, the analysis that came out of an AI is okay, it is accurate, and it's in the appropriate format. And also run your papers through a plagiarism check before you submit it to a journal. And you cannot add an AI as a co-author. So when do people add AI as a co-author is when they give out huge responsibilities to AI to write large chunks of information, because that's what we are used to doing. So when a human contributes majorly to our papers, we add them as a co-author. So similarly, you cannot hand over so many responsibilities to an AI that it qualifies to be a co-author, or you cannot add AI as a co-author as well. So that is what I was trying to drive it on that particular slide.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you so much.
And we have another question in the chat box.
Yeah, I'm picking it up. So Dr. Sandeep, I'm glad that you enjoyed the session. Dr. SOWMIYA, when tools are used to frame any idea or data, then will they come under the umbrella of plagiarism? So this is slightly tricky, because when you ask an AI to generate an idea, where is this idea coming from? Because AI is not exactly creative. So when it tries to come out with an idea, it is still a very extended idea of what already exists. So are you okay with a derived idea, which is also okay. In most of the cases, not all research ideas are novel. They are just derived ideas. So you can start with a derived idea, validate the research question or the idea to make sure that nobody else has worked on the same question in the same population, in the same context, right? Several of the times that is what happens. So you can just pick a few studies that were done in the US in a different population, in a different context. You can have the same research question, but then you're going to do it in an Indian population. You're going to do it in the Northeast Indian population, for instance, and at a different demographic, in a different age group, in a different, a completely different set of professionals. Then that becomes a novel idea. So yes, AI can be used to generate these derivative ideas. Sometimes you can use AI to collect data, but then an idea is easy to validate. But when you look at data, hardcore data is very difficult for you to validate for accuracy and for also relevance. So though it does not come exactly under plagiarism, because when you're going to use an AI tool for generating data or for deriving data, just make sure that you acknowledge the use of AI in your declaration. But having said that, you should also make sure that the idea is valid. You have to add a validation step to the idea, also to the data that you get out of an AI tool. Once you apply the human filter, then the first steps can be outsourced to AI. Okay, so any other questions? You can just unmute, or you can just drop it into the chat box as well. Thank you, Dr. Geeta Shri. Happy you like the session.
Hey, ma'am, I think there is no more questions from the participants. Once again, on behalf of everyone, I thank you for your time and for sharing your knowledge with us today. Your contribution has made this session incredibly valuable, ma'am. We look forward in implementing the ideas you have shared in our pathway. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
We are concluding the session here. The next session will start from 2 p.m. So participants are requested to join the session by 1:55 p.m. Thank you.
So see you all sometime later in some other session. Have a nice day. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, ma'am.